Please be seated. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of Middlesbrough Council. Can I take this opportunity to advise members of the public you're very welcome to observe, but you cannot participate in the meeting this evening. Can I also remind all councillors when speaking please to use the microphone, and in the event of a fire alarm sounds, attendees will be advised to evacuate the building via the nearest fire exit and assemble near the bottle of notes opposite Mima. Agenda item 2, apologies for absence. What apologies you got this afternoon?
We have apologies from Councillors Hussain, McTighe, McConnell and Saunders.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Go on, Councillor. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Is there any declarations?
Is it okay if I sit, Chair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I'm declaring an interest because a member of a family works for an organisation that manages one of the funds mentioned in the budget, and it is a non-pecuniary interest that I am declaring.
Thank you very much. Is there any further declarations of interest this evening? No, thank you. Agenda item 4, announcements. There's no announcements for this meeting. Agenda item 5, Council Tax Reduction Scheme 2026-2027. I'm now going to invite the Executive Member for Finance to present the report and propose the recommendations.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. The report sets out the proposed Council Tax Reduction Scheme, otherwise known as Council Tax Support, formerly Council Tax Benefit, for the 2026 year, 2026-27. So every authority now has the statutory requirement to design and locally fund a council tax reduction scheme no later than the 11th of March each year, and it has to be approved by full council. This has already been to the executive. It will incorporate some very minor legislative amendments made by the government, but the key change, if there is any, really is the increases to income bandings to adjust for inflation and for the increases in benefits that will take place from April. It will continue to assist low-income households through appropriately reduced council tax charges while still remaining affordable for the council. I should perhaps stress that this is the council tax reduction scheme, which is based on people's income and ability to pay. It is separately, there are discounts and exemptions, such as the exemption for students, discounts for single occupants. They fall outside of this scheme and aren't affected. I'll just move the recommendations, Chair, and take any questions.
Councillor Cook, you're the seconder. Do you want to reserve the right to speak, or do you wish to speak now?
I'll reserve the right.
Thank you. I'll take questions starting from the largest group, which is the Mika group, and that'll be Councillor Morrish. You've obviously got the right to speak, but you don't have to. I'll go to the Conservative group next with Councillor Coob. Martin East group, Councillor Davison. No, and then Reform group, Councillor Rush. That's fine. Councillor Cook, do you wish to come back in now?
Yep.
No. Would anyone else wish to speak on this afternoon? No. I'll now pass over to the Monitor Officer to conduct the vote.
Thanks, Chair. So we do a recorded vote on each of the reports on the agenda tonight because this is a budget meeting. So what I will do is call out the name of each councillor and the mayor, and could you say, please, whether you are for the recommendations in the report, whether you are against, or whether you abstain. So starting with Mayor Cook.
For.
Councillor Banks.
For.
Councillor Blades. For. Councillor Branson. For. Councillor Clinch. For. Councillor J. Cook. For. Councillor Cooper. For. Councillor Coop. For. Councillor Davison. For. Councillor Ewan. For. Councillor Finesse. For. Councillor Gavigan, Councillor Henman, Councillor Hill, Councillor Hurst, Councillor Hubbard, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Jones, Councillor Kabuye, Councillor Lewis, Councillor Livingston, Councillor Mason, Councillor McCabe, Councillor Mohan, Councillor Morrish, Councillor Nicholson, Councillor Nugent, Councillor J. Platt, Councillor S. Platt, Councillor Remain, Councillor Rostron, Councillor Rush, Councillor Riles, Councillor Smiles, Councillor Story, Councillor J. Thompson, Councillor Tranter, Councillor Uddin, Councillor Walker, Councillor Wilson, Councillor J. Young, Councillor L. Young. Thank you. So that recorded vote, the results of which are that the recommendations in the report are carried. Report's approved. Thank you.
Agenda item 6, which is the 2026-27 revenue budget, medium-term financial plan and the council tax setting. I'm now going to invite the Mayor to present the report and propose the recommendations.
Good evening, everyone. People will be very familiar with the budget so far, but I think it's really worth setting out. So I won't take all my time. I'll reserve some of it for the end, if that's okay with the Chair. This is a budget where we are, for the first time in a very long time, able to add in both growth, have no cuts, and have a low rise in council tax, which is just the adult social care precept. The 6.5 million of growth will be able to do amazing things, such as a youth club or youth service in every single ward, free pest control, but also a doubling of our caretakers, which I think everyone will agree has been a huge success so far. I hope as we move forward throughout this budget debate that everyone is able to see the benefits of some of the proposals that we have, and I'm happy to clear up any concerns or questions that people may have throughout. And other than that, I'll move the recommendations.
Now invite the seconder, Councillor Nicky Walker, to either speak or reserve the right to speak.
Yeah, I'd second the proposal, Chair, and reserve the right to speak.
I'm now going to invite one member from each of the opposition groups to respond to the budget in the following order. The Mika group first, and that's Councillor Morrish.
Thank you, Chair. With the settlement received from the central government to Middlesbrough, which gave this council the potential to have a 0% increase in council tax, which has been abandoned this year, possibly in favour of next year, as 2027 is, of course, an election year in Middlesbrough. The council tax-paying households in the borough will see straight through the cynical bribes to vote Labour this year and next. It isn't down to the NBC officers or the executive who have allowed this budget to happen. It's purely down to the massive settlement from a U-turn government. The Mika group have very mixed feelings about this budget, which reflects mine. Where there are parts that I dislike and parts that I think are worthy, a £6 million plus vanity project from the Mayor is just that, and that money could have been used in better ways in some cases, not all. 290 pages, somewhat of a tome. We could really do with a summary with the rest available online in future on the budget. I'm concerned about the ongoing overspend in children's services of 8.241 million. This suggests that children's services and finance need to be laser focused on delivering within budget. However, I was appalled to read that the contract for 42 million for children's accommodation was deemed a specially urgent decision and was unable to be scrutinised. This contract is shared jointly between Middlesbrough Council and Redcar and Cleveland Council, how can we be sure that value for money is being delivered by this contract? What actions have been taken to ensure that the tendering process is being appropriately managed? And when were Middlesbrough Council members going to be told about this significant issue? I don't doubt that this budget will be voted through tonight, but I also have no doubt if it fails on the first vote, that a council officer will step in and give a non-material consideration to encourage a re-vote straight away after last Thursday's debacle. Thank you.
Mayor Cook, do you want to respond to the questions straight away?
So I think we should really view some of this, ironically, in the light of day. So I think when we talk about vanity projects, even if we get to the end of this settlement, it will leave us, due to austerity, 50 million short in real terms of where we should have been since 2010. That is an absolutely appalling situation for us to be in, and that is the cost of austerity. I don't think having a youth club in every single ward, including yours, is a vanity project. I think it's an incredibly useful piece of structure that we need as part of our social fabric. I think the other budgets that I've set, which obviously the Mika Group has not supported, has included reversing streetlight turning off, is put in the neighbourhood caretakers, which get praised at every single meeting. I do question when the Mika Group will eventually start to support budgets that are in the interests of their residents.
Thank you. I'm now going to invite the Conservative. Not this evening, we're just the nature of how it's going to work. We're going to just move through. Now invite Councillor Coop to make his comments on the budget this evening, if you want to. Say that.
Sorry, I want to make a quick point, but Councillor Mason wants to make a point as well. Will he be allowed to?
Yes, so you can speak for 10 minutes, and then Councillor Mason can come in after that and speak for 3 minutes later in the debate.
Can we do it the other way around?
Yeah, as long as you nominate Councillor.
I'm not going to speak for long. Thank you. Can I first thank Mayor Cook and also Nikki Walker for the advanced information I received on the financial resilience group that we did. That was very useful. I couldn't support it last year, but this year it's very close. Well, it's extremely close anyway. The main thing I have, and he knows what I'm going to say, is the green or the brown bin collection. I do feel, despite what was said, that the amount of stuff in the south of the town, I accept the youth club, and I'm still trying to persuade the people of Sainton to have one. I do feel that the brown bin collection, reducing the cost of that, would go somewhere towards helping most of the people in the south of the town. It's one thing saying we reduce it to 2%, I accept that, but I would like to see a little bit more for the residents. This is what I've been asked, and this is what I'm saying. So if perhaps you can answer that, what we can do to reduce the cost of brown bins, I will be a lot happier. Thank you.
Mayor Cook?
Yep. So as is in the report, there is 3 minimum separate items that will be coming for a further report at a later date, and those 3 things are car parking charges, garden waste and pest control. Pest control, we need a report to enable it. The garden waste service, we obviously have 2 financial years that it covers, which obviously makes it difficult because we have already started the process for this year and already taken subscriptions, and the process for any sort of changes are really quite difficult. I am obviously exploring those 3 things, but as we discussed at the financial working group, to implement it for this year will be really difficult, but I am looking, and we will explore at that meeting, what other easements we can make, and that might be a case that we look at changing the months of collection and trying to add some in, or trying to make some arrangement to try and benefit this year as well as next year.
Now going to move on to Martin East Independent Group. No, that's fine. Moving on to Reform UK, Councillor Rush. Oh, Councillor, is it possible to use the microphone, please?
This is a defining financial decision of the year. A £200.8 million net revenue budget must be judged not only on legality and balance but on structural resilience, income realism, statutory sufficiency and delivery credibility, value for money, equality considerations and alignment with the residents' priorities. Now, there is a positive in here that you aren't increasing the council tax core, but increasing the 2% on the adult social services side. However, limited growth increases reliance on disciplined financial management, and when flexibility is constrained, resilience must come from credible recurring savings, prudent reserves and realistic modelling. The projected general fund balance of 11.1 million sits just above the advised minimum, but adequacy must be measured against risk exposure, not compliance with minimum thresholds. In a 200 million revenue environment, this represents a very tight buffer. If council tax collection underperforms, if demand in adult social care exceeds forecast, or if recurring savings are delayed, reserve resilience narrows quickly, and resilience must be assessed under compound pressure rather than isolated variabilities. The revenue forecast is heavily dependent on council tax collection performance and projected tax-based growth. Income modelling must reflect current performance trends and economic reality, and optimistic income assumptions create structural risk. Cautious forecasting protects residents from in-year correction, and I hope this is being followed. The medium-term financial plan relies materially on recurring savings. Structural stability depends on those savings being fully identified within the published schedule, genuinely recurring rather than one-off, deliverable within the financial year, and appropriately assessed for delivery risk. Where savings carry elevated or high-risk ratings, mitigation planning must be credible and must be realistic. A one-off measures balance a year, but recurring structural savings secure the medium term, and if delivery slips, financial pressure returns. This budget must remain fully fund statutory duties in adult social care, safeguarding, children's service, and not forgetting SEND provisions. Demand-led services are inherently volatile, and the dedicated schools grant deficit exceeding 31 million remains a structural exposure. Overriding arrangements currently shield the general fund, but that protection is not permanent. Prudent financial stewardship requires recognising this exposure in advance. Balance in the books is necessary. Delivering measurable outcomes aligned with council plan priorities is essential. Spending must demonstrate clear benefit, and where savings reshape services, transparency is of utmost importance. Service redesign can improve efficiency, but in some cases it may reduce frontline capacity. That risk must be acknowledged and actively managed. This is a disciplined budget that broadly protects statutory services, but it does leave limited margin for operational slippage. Its effectiveness will depend heavily on delivery. Equality impact assessments must have been completed prior to approval of saving proposals. An impact on vulnerable residents must be carefully considered, with fairness must remain central to allocation decisions. Nunthorpe itself continues to experience housing growth and associated infrastructure strain. Population growth increases demands for highways, waste services, school places and local facilities, and financial modelling should reflect demographic reality. Growth without proportionate allocation risks long-term balance. Although external borrowing is forecast to rise significantly over the medium term, with debt servicing costs exceeding 14 million next year, borrowing within authorised limits is lawful. Borrowing must also remain comfortable, affordable under conservative interest rate modelling, and headroom between projected borrowing and authorised limits should remain prudent rather than marginal. Debt should finance long-term benefit aligned with council plan priorities rather than short-term pressure management.
Thank you, Councillor.
Sorry, I also want to propose an amendment to the budget report as well. I don't know if I do that now or wait till...
Yeah, will you just read it word for word, the proposed amendment to start with?
Yeah. So I move the amendment regarding enhanced quarterly financial monitoring. This amendment would require quarterly reports to full council detailing progress against delivery of recurring savings, movements in general fund reserves, changes in the dedicated schools grant deficit position, borrowing levels and headroom under potential code. This carries no additional financial costs to the government or the council. It does not alter the balance of the budget. What it does is strengthens transparency and oversight in areas where we identified risks this evening, and also shows full transparency to the public as well.
Thank you. You can now speak to the motion now that you've read it out in full if you wish to, Councillor Rush. Like explain it in more detail if you wish to the rest of the members.
So obviously, for me, transparency is very important to the public, and I think the public want full transparency. And although these meetings are live streamed, the committee meetings where all this goes on, and I would suggest a lot of the public don't even know where to find that information. So for me, it should be published quarterly for the public to fully see.
Do we have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Coop. Is there any factual information or clarification that members need on the motion this evening? Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not against that being included, but just for transparency for the public watching, the budget monitoring is legally a function of the executive. The reports go to the executive. They also go to the Overall Scrutiny Board. And I don't think I have ever failed to include in my report to Council, which members can ask questions on, what I think are the things that people are most interested in about that report, which is usually about where we are in relation to spend against budget. But I understand anybody could ask a question on that report when I include that. Having said that, I'm not versatile to that being included. I just wanted to make it clear that that opportunity is there and has been there for members. And indeed, it's something that I pushed when I became executive member again, when I brought back the member involvement and leadership on budget monitoring, which had ceased. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The seconder, you have now the chance to make comments on the motion, if you wish, or you can reserve the right. Oh, sorry, Councillor, the microphone's not working.
Right. This amendment is not just for the executive, it is for the public to see the transparency, and we have nothing to hide.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just accept it.
I'm going to hand over to Mayor Cook.
I accept the amendment. Is that as much as I need to say?
Yeah. We're now going to take a short adjournment just to implement the motion within the report this evening. So if you just give us 5 minutes, a little bit longer actually, if we say 7:30, so about 7 minutes, if that's okay. Just your motion in.
Your word,
Yeah.
what we need to do is put it into the budget report as the next recommendation.
Yeah, just a suggestion on motions. If there's any more motions, we could have 5 minutes every 10 minutes.
We need to do them individually.
So you need to do them individually. Okay, cheers.
Why? What did you do? Yes, half past.
Good evening. We're now going to reopen the meeting this afternoon. I'm going to pass over to the monitoring officer just to clarify the motion.
So following the acceptance by the Mayor of the amendment to the budget report that was proposed by Councillor Rush, I will now clarify which of the... I'll clarify how the report has been amended that you'll be voting on later. So if members are following on their laptops or in their papers, it's page 110 of the agenda pack, and at paragraph 2 of the budget report, paragraph 2.1 is amended to read that the council is requested to approve the following as set out in 2.1.1 to 2.1.12 below, and then there's an additional subparagraph added at 2.1.12, so that's after 2.11, and that will read, to receive reports for noting on a quarterly basis covering progress against delivery of recurring savings, movements in general fund reserves, changes in the dedicated schools grant deficit position, borrowing levels and headroom under the Prudential Code. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to hand back to Mayor Cook to respond to Councillor Rush's comments.
Yes, and you'll have to forgive me because there was quite a lot to remember. So firstly, a lot of what you said was really quite good, and I think you'd be quite valuable, and I think Councillor Coop would probably agree, and probably welcome you on the Financial Resilience Working Group. I think you'd be a good member for that. But I think ultimately there was a couple of things that weren't quite correct. So the general fund reserves position absolutely is sat there at that amount, but that isn't taken in the rest of the reserves that we have as a council, which is another 28 million on top of the 11 that you'd quoted. And one of the things that we've worked really hard to do is to build up that reserves position, and even in this budget we are still building up that reserves position because we recognise, as you do, that it's really important that we have a stable financial position. The other part to this budget, which touches on some of the fragility that you've mentioned, is about making sure that we, in the first instance, made sure there was service demand built in. So before any other sort of political decisions or council plan decisions were made, we built in money to go back into services to rebuild them up to a level where they were more acceptable and more realistic budgets. So that was in the first instance before we then took any political decisions. I think the rest of your points were around DSG. There was a huge point on that. 90% of that now is being covered by central government, with the further 10% being spread across 2 years, which is a really, really important fact. One of the clarities that we're still seeking is about the treatment of DSG, and for those of you that are interested, it's quite a boring subject, but in other places they treat DSG differently. And it was a case that some people were servicing the debt, some people weren't. So we are wanting clarity still about what level is being covered in that 90%. Does it cover the servicement of it or does it not? But absolutely happy to bring more reports to Council to demonstrate the excellent work that Councillor Nicky Walker does on finance.
Thank you. Before we open up the debate to all members, I'm going to ask if there's any further amendments to the recommendations of the report this evening. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, I would just like to propose an amendment, if that's okay.
Yeah, so what we'll do is, if you read it out in its entirety, and then we'll have to bring it over here, determine the sort of the viability, and then we'll jump back into the meeting if that's all right.
Okay, so do I kind of read my reasonings for it yet, or do I just... Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's just to halve the current green waste service charge, but for this year rather than next.
Yeah. Right, we're going to just adjourn the meeting again for roughly about 5 or 6 minutes, just while myself and the monitor officer take the motion this evening. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. I'm going to hand over to Councillor Smiles to read her motion in its entirety.
Thank you very much. So I've been told that I need to kind of propose a motion to, under Council Procedure Rule 4.8.25x, to suspend the Council Procedure Rule of 4.8.29c, which requires that if an amendment has financial implications for the Council, that notice of it must be also served in writing on the Chief Finance Officer at least three clear days before the meeting. And I would ask for a seconder, please.
Yeah, is there a seconder? Councillor Coop, thank you. I'm going to hand over to the Monitoring Officer now to conduct the vote.
So that's a proposed procedural motion, and we need to do a recorded vote on that because we're in a budget meeting and all votes in a budget meeting require a recorded vote.
Can I have a point of clarity? Just to make sure that everyone understands what the vote is. Yeah. So can I just clarify that what we are doing essentially, given what has already been spoken about, is to suspend any need to make sure that things are costed so that they can go through tonight?
No, that's not what's been asked for. What we are voting on, what Councillor Smiles has proposed, is whereas the Council Procedure Rules would normally require that any amendment that's proposed to the budget is submitted in writing 3 days in advance and it's then costed out by the Chief Finance Officer, Councillor Smiles is proposing that that rule is suspended so that she may then, as I understand it, put forward a proposal which is an amendment to the budget and which has cost implications.
How is that different?
The question whether that matter's decided upon tonight is a different question because obviously in any event the Section 151 officer needs to be satisfied that the budget can be balanced and that his Section 25 report still has cogency. So that the first question is the procedural motion. Okay. So I'll go through the recorded vote then. Mayor Cook, for, against or abstain? Councillor Banks?
Against.
Councillor Blades? Councillor Branson, Councillor Clinch, Councillor J. Cook, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Coop, Councillor Davison, Councillor Ewan, Councillor Finesse, Councillor Gavigan, Councillor Henman, Councillor Hill, Councillor Hurst, Councillor Hubbard, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Jones, Councillor Kabuye, Councillor Lewis, Councillor Mason, Councillor McCabe, Councillor Mohan, Councillor Morrish, Councillor Nicholson, Councillor Nugent, Councillor J. Platt, Councillor S. Platt, Councillor Remain, Councillor Rostron, Councillor Rush, Councillor Riles, Councillor Smiles, Councillor P. Story, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Tranter, Councillor Uddin, Councillor Walker, Councillor Wilson, Councillor J. Young, Councillor L. Young. Okay, can members bear with me while we count the votes? So the result of the recorded vote is as follows. There were 14 votes for the procedural motion, 25 against and 1 abstention. So that means that the procedural motion is not carried.
Is there any further motions that wish to be proposed this evening, amendments this evening? Now open the floor to the debate. To any other members that haven't spoken so far this evening, you have up to 3 minutes to speak. Would anyone wish to speak? Councillor Mason.
Thanks a lot, Chair. Well, democracy has certainly been subverted this evening, but let me begin fairly. This is a better short-term position than what we've seen in recent years. But a balanced spreadsheet is not the same as a resilient budget, and tonight I want to focus on what sits underneath the surface. First, the £31 million SEND deficit. By March of 2026, the Council expects a £31.2 million DSG deficit. The only reason it does not currently destabilise the Council is a temporary statutory override that ends in 2027-2028. If the government does not intervene, that £31 million lands here. So my question is quite simple. What funded contingency plan exists in this budget if the government does not fix SEND funding? Because I can't find one. Second, savings. £2.5 million of previously approved savings have now been scrapped. Table 8 in the report shows why. Parking charges have been announced and then paused. A contractual review has been double counted. A senior management review has delivered no savings at all. And perhaps most scandalously, collection fund surpluses amounting to over £1 million have been found to not constitute proper financial practice. This isn't bad luck, it's weak financial discipline. So why should this council believe that the remaining £3.5 million of savings will succeed when the £2.5 million have already collapsed? Third, demand. Pressure rises from £15.5 million next year to nearly £36 million by 2029-30. And it's the usual suspects: adult social care, children's placements, and statutory waste. These are legal duties, but I do ask directly, what has this executive actually done to reduce demand? Not manage it, to actually reduce it. What measurable evidence are there that fewer people are entering high-cost services? And finally, in relation to borrowing, external debt rises to over £326 million. Capital financing, and for the benefit of the public here, that's what we effectively spend on interest, is now rising to £14 million per year, which is 7.1% of our entire revenue budget. That money's gone before a single service is delivered. So I ask plainly, is borrowing being increased to soften difficult revenue choices? How much of the capital programme depends on receipts or grants which we have not yet secured? And what happens if they do not arrive? Chair, overall this budget looks stable, but underneath we have a £31 million SEND risk with no local solution, savings that were poorly constructed, demand still accelerating, and borrowing locking in future costs. The SEND system is not within our control, national funding is not within our control, but the quality of executive judgment is.
5 seconds, Councillor.
So my final question is, which parts of this plan reflect strong internal control and which reflect optimism and deferral of difficult decisions down the line?
Mr. Mayor.
Yep. So firstly, it would be nice if you adapt speeches as we go, because I covered the DSG earlier. 90% of that is going to be covered by national government. The remaining 10% we already have accounted for. When it comes to savings, we've already taken out significant savings. We took on the savings that were avoided by the previous administration and made sure that we implemented savings properly. When we talk about demand, we are still not overspending at the same rate that was previously overspending or predicted to be overspent. I remember sitting over there and remembering our council getting an extra £9 million of funding and not a single penny went into frontline services to help any single resident. It all went straight into demand because you were not looking after that purse. So I won't probably take lectures on that subject. The next part, capital financing, I think there's a fundamental flaw in the understanding. Capital financing cannot be used to cover up revenue positions. It is not the same budget. And if we want to look at scenarios where capital financing is crippling an organisation, we need look no further than the combined authority which is reducing the amount that is able to do in comparison to other combined authorities because of the absolute burden of capital financing. So we will not be in that position, but we need to invest in our roads, in our infrastructure, and mostly within our schools, buildings and community centres.
Now I invite any further members that wish to make comments on the report this evening. Councillor Hemmant.
Am I on? Yeah. Am I on now? No? Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thanks. I just wanted to come back on a couple of points that were made about children's services. The first one that Councillor Mason makes about what evidence we have that demand for costly placements is going down. Placements still get more complicated, but I would point out that the numbers under the previous administration of children going into care was around 700 at a high point, and it's much closer to 500 now. It's difficult, but investment in early help is making sure that people are given the support they need earlier. And I wanted to address the point about the £42 million contract as well that Councillor Morrish would like to scrutinise. If he wants to scrutinise that, unfortunately he's in the wrong council chamber in the wrong town, because that is an issue for Redcar and Cleveland Council. It was mistakenly put in the report that it's jointly commissioned with us. It is not. It is their money, and we were named in case we want to use it in the future. So I think that's a side point. This is a really solid budget for children's services, and Councillor Walker's approach is right, that we still need to make savings. There's a realistic level for demand there, and there's lots of work that's going on to control that spend, to make sure placements are at the right level and reducing that cost. I'm involved in that at our budget clinics, as is Councillor Walker, and we'll continue to add that scrutiny and improve that scrutiny as we go forward.
Now I invite any further members to make comments this evening. Councillor Kabui.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I really rise to support this budget because it delivers the practical improvements Newport residents have been asking for and deserve. Firstly, I would really welcome the investment in our youth services in every ward. For many families in Newport, youth clubs and activities are essential. Safe spaces and positive role models help reduce antisocial behavior. They build confidence and support better outcomes. This is about giving young people hope. Second, the investment in our neighborhood hub will bring services closer to home. A modern, accessible hub will make it easier for residents to get advice, support, and community activities locally, strengthening our community and easing pressure on expensive centralized services down the line. Third, I am pleased to see a strong focus on cleaner streets. Residents regularly raise concerns about fly tipping, litter, and pests. More street cleaning, faster removal of waste, and better enforcement show that we take neighborhood standards seriously. When streets are clean and well maintained, pride returns. People feel safe. Communities feel valued. Finally, improved parks and play areas will boost well-being, encourage physical activity, and give families safe, welcoming spaces. So upgraded equipment and more ranger presence will make a real difference. Together, these measures show real understanding of Newport's needs. This is a budget that supports families, strengthens our community, and invests in opportunity. And I am proud to support this budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, can I propose that we move to a vote?
You'd have to, Councillor Clinch, you'd have to suggest a procedural motion to move to the vote. Is there any further members that wish to make comments this evening? Thank you. Now going to give the seconder a chance to respond this evening.
Thank you, Chair. If I can just pick up a couple of points on Councillor Mason's comments. It's actually some of what you were talking about was covered in the Treasury Management Report, which is the next report after the budget. I think you said 17%. Did you say 17%? Sorry, 7. I misheard you. It is 7. There is actually a graph in that report that shows that, and all councils, I think all councils bar one, we never know which one, borrow, just like most people who go to buy a house, get a mortgage. We need to borrow to finance things like our bin wagons, bin wagons, etc. So that's not unusual. Most councils do. Our borrowing level is less than the average for nationally. So, and the recommended level of 7% might not mean a lot to people out there. It certainly wouldn't to me before I became a councillor. The borrowing level, the recommended percentage is 10%, so we are below that currently. If it just turns, Chair, to a few comments of my own, I will touch on some things that have been said by other members as well. So this budget has been made possible by two things. One is robust management of the council's finances and also a much improved settlement from the government this year. And I said at the executive, and I think I'll be touching on some of the points that people have already made here, is that we should follow 3 underlying principles, and they're as simple as A, B, C. So A is it should be affordable. We should only spend and set council tax levels according to what we can afford, and we should listen to our Section 151 officers' professional advice in this respect. B, it should be a budget that benefits our residents, both in terms of council tax increase and frontline service growth. That is what we are really here for as councillors, what we want to do, and these have been outlined by the Mayor. And C, one that cements our financial position. So we do have a duty to the people of Middlesbrough to protect the council's resilience in the medium to longer term, as well as thinking of the budget tonight. We need to rebuild what were our critically low level of reserves. We've made what's been described as a remarkable recovery over the last 2 or 3 years, but we must now avoid slipping back into the financial mess that we inherited. We should and have, touching on Councillor Rush's point, avoid drawing on reserves in setting the budget. And I'm also confident we will also avoid drawing on our reserves in our spend against this year's budget based on the position, the Q3 position, bearing in mind that we projected putting £6 million in the budget. So we are not drawing on our reserves to meet our overspends, which was the case before, if indeed we have one, and we don't know yet. People might remember that I frequently mentioned we are not yet out of the woods. And they probably got a bit sick of me saying it. Although we're in a better position, and undoubtedly we are, we may now be coming out of the woods. We may even see the daylight, but we want to continue that journey, and we don't want to slip back into the dark. So, as has been mentioned, adults and children's services remain a risk, as they are in councils up and down the land. If you look at the media, that's what everybody seems to be saying. That doesn't mean we shouldn't challenge it in Middlesbrough and shouldn't have a laser focus on that, and it is indeed what we are doing. To turn to the 0% council tax increase, and wouldn't we all want to do that for our residents? And of course the executive did look at that. Probably the first time we've been able to even think about that. But we've got to think about the criteria I've just mentioned. Our Section 151 officer stated an increase in council tax below 2% in 2026-27 would not be acceptable, as this would mean a lack of contribution towards the increased costs of adult social care, which the government assumed in that calculation of the funding available to the council, and also, in my view, that's his view, would potentially open the council up to increased scrutiny of the council's financial position by government. And I think that is a really important point. So I know the Mayor's been working tirelessly behind the scenes with central government to make Middlesbrough's case for more and fairer funding. And we should all thank him for that. But to suggest a lower than 2% or a zero council tax increase at that time would simply send the wrong message to government. Going to government to ask for more money without any council tax increase, which is assumed by the government that we will. It's also, we need to be wary that some of the Section 114 councils, or the ones that have gone through the equivalent of bankruptcy, set artificially low council tax. So artificially low council tax today, which we will be doing, can result in massive cuts to services and council tax increases approaching and reaching double figures in the future. We cannot risk that happening to Middlesbrough. We must learn from other authorities. So that's why I would not support the Maker Group's suggestion. All the points that Councillor Rush has made actually underline the need for caution and not to risk the council's finances by putting in a zero council tax increase. The other point is that the settlement is phased in over 3 years, so we only get part of the settlement this year. And going back to Mayor Cook's point, about the pain we've taken before, we've already put in, since 2013, made £123 million of savings. We need to build some of that back in. We need to rebuild the services for our residents. And most councils will be setting a 4.99% council tax increase, and the government will continue to assume that amount when calculating our core spending power, which in turn calculates our level of government funding. In terms of consultation and members' opportunity to take part in the budget, we had an all-members briefing on the medium-term financial. We've had all-member briefings on the medium-term financial plan and on the budget. There were 5 meetings of the cross-party financial resilience working group, and I would like to personally thank Councillor Coote for his attendance and his contribution towards that, and we have taken proposals from that in the budget today. The budget also went to Overview and Scrutiny Board. The budget consultation was promoted to over, in terms of residents, the budget consultation was promoted to over 45,000 residents by an email council newsletter and promoted on our website and social media. There was also a public consultation meeting. There were 302 responses to the consultation. And for once, the majority of the public who were consulted support the principles in this budget. They supported, but the majority of the public supported both all the proposals for growth and the proposed level of council tax increase. 2% adult social care, nothing for the general council tax increase, making a total of 2%. So I think that's probably a first. I don't know. And that's what I want to say, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to now invite the monitoring officer to conduct a vote.
So we'll now take a vote on the recommendations in the report, agenda item 6, including the additional recommendation that came from Councillor Rush's approved amendment. So I will again ask each member to indicate whether they are for, against or abstain in relation to the recommendations. Mayor Cook. Councillor Banks. Councillor Blades. Councillor Branson. Councillor Clinch. Councillor J. Cook. Councillor Cooper. Councillor Coop. Councillor Davison. Councillor Ewan. Councillor Finesse. Councillor Gavigan. Councillor Grange, not here. Councillor Henman. Councillor Hill. Councillor Hurst. Councillor Hubbard. Councillor Jackson. Councillor Jones. Councillor Kabuye. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Mason. Councillor McCabe. Councillor Mohan. Councillor Morrish. Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Nugent. Councillor J. Platt. Councillor S. Platt. Councillor Romain. Councillor Rostron. Councillor Rush. Councillor Riles. Councillor Smiles. Councillor Story. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Tranter. Councillor Walker. Councillor Wilson. Councillor J. Young. And Councillor L. Young. Thank you. If you just let us count the scores. Thank you. The results of that vote are 37 votes for the recommendations, 3 against and no abstentions. So the budget is approved.
Agenda item 7, Prudential Indicators 2026 to 27 to 2029 to 30, Treasury Management Annual Strategy Report 26-27. And now invite the Executive Member for Finance to present the report and propose the recommendations. Councillor Nicky Walker.
Thank you, Chair. I hope this will be quite quick because the battery's going on the laptop if I need to answer any questions, but I might have to need to borrow the Mayor's report. This is quite a technical report. There has been a briefing for all members on this, which actually sparked some really interesting questions. So basically, the report includes the level of capital expenditure and how it's financed for the medium-term financial plan period, the Council's policy in relation to minimum revenue provision and debt repayment for this period, a forward projection on capital receipts for the medium-term financial plan period, a capital financing requirement or our need to borrow for the next financial year, an authorised limit for external debt for the financial year, and a net capital financing budget for the year, and the Section 151 officers' recommendation that these are affordable. As I mentioned a little earlier, there's a graph showing the total debt as a percentage of core spending power for all English unitary authorities. We go over the last year, 24-25, and it shows that Middlesbrough's is below average, which is good news, Chair. And I'll move the recommendations and take any questions.
And now invite Mayor Cook, the seconder of the report, to either speak or wait until the end.
I'll leave this one to Nicky.
Now I'm going to invite the different group leaders to come and speak on the report if they wish. Thank you. Councillor Coop, Councillor Davison, Councillor Rush.
The Treasury section forecasts external borrowing rising to 351 million by 2030, with debt servicing costs of 14.1 million next year. Can you please explain how does the borrowing growth remain aligned with revenue affordability across the medium-term financial plan? What affordability benchmark does the Section 151 officer consider prudent? And at what threshold would borrowing levels trigger a formal affordability review under the Prudential Code? Compliance with authorised limits is necessary. Prudence requires more than compliance, and affordability must be assessed under conservative assumptions, including interest rate sensitivity. At 1%, upward movement in rates across the medium term would have impacts on revenue implications. Headroom between projected borrowing and authorised limits should remain proportional and prudent. The minimum revenue provision policy must align with current CIPFA guidance and ensure repayment assumptions do not defer risk in future years. Borrowing should support investment aligned with council plan priorities and demonstrate long-term benefit, as debt must finance resilience and substantial growth. So can I also ask, has the minimum revenue provision policy been reviewed within the last 12 months in line with current CIPFA guidance?
Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Chair. Quite a lot of questions there. I would like to ask, well, in which points does she think we're not meeting? It's gone off. The figures that she created are correct. There is... Sorry, yes, the figures of 14 million financing cost against net revenue, what you give 7% are correct to say that is below average. Are they in line with, are we borrowing to deliver the council's priorities? Yes, we are. Some of them, there's a lot of questions there, some quite technical ones. If she would like to forward them to me in an email, because some of them relate to what the Section 151 officer has done, I'll be more than happy to get answers on those.
Thank you. Does any further members wish to speak this evening? No. Mayor Cook, would you wish to? No. I want to hand over to the Monitor Officer to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Again, this is a recorded vote, and the vote relates to the recommendations at paragraph 2 of the report and the approvals required there. So again, I will call out each person's name and ask you to indicate whether you are for, against or abstain in relation to the recommendations. Mayor Cook. Councillor Banks. Councillor Blades. Councillor Branson. Councillor Clinch. Councillor J. Cook. Councillor Cooper. Councillor Coop. Councillor Davison. Councillor Ewan. Councillor Finesse. Councillor Gavigan. Councillor Henman. Councillor Hill. Councillor Hurst. Councillor Hubbard. Councillor Jackson. Councillor Jones. Councillor Kabuye. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Mason. Councillor McCabe. Councillor Mohan. Councillor Morrish. Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Nugent. She's gone. Councillor J. Platt. Councillor S. Platt. Councillor Remain. Councillor Ostron. Councillor Rush. Councillor Riles. Councillor Smiles. Councillor Story. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Tranter. Councillor Uddin. Gone. Councillor Walker. Councillor Wilson. Councillor J. Young. Councillor L. Young. Okay, just a moment, please. The results of that vote are 36 votes for the recommendations, 2 against and 1 abstention. So the recommendations are approved. The report is approved. Thank you.
I now formally close the meeting. But before everyone leaves, I'm just going to quickly pass over to Mayor Cook. He's going to announce something quite exciting.
So sorry to keep you all any longer, but I thought it was worth updating council on this before it hits the press or goes anywhere else. I wish. During the Old Town Hall renovations, we have discovered a time capsule from 1858, which has various documents in it. They've been rescued. They're currently undergoing a process to make sure we can salvage them. But there are documents on there, including the foundation of the clock tower, which has such famous signatures as John Vaughan and Isaac Wilson attached to it. So obviously this is going through a process now of being saved, but we will be sending out an invite to all councillors to be able to come and see the documents. But I thought it was of such significance I didn't want tonight to pass without people finding out first.